Italian politics. Now, I know this is being streamed and recorded, and I know this is going to hurt the feelings of my Italian friends. And believe me, I've got plenty of Italian friends, because Italy is the one country in the world where cyberpunk is a native cultural practice. And I have people there in the Italian cyberpunk movement, really, who are brothers and sisters. They are people I would trust with my children. At least my stepdaughter. I would trust them with a stepchild. She likes them, she knows what she's getting into. But, you know, as King Victor Emmanuel said, this is kind of an Italian in-joke here, I can no longer remain deaf to the cry of pain that reaches me from all parts of Italy. That's what he said just before the war that unified Italy. And Italy as a state is actually younger than the state of Texas. So right now they're having this amazing sex scandal, which is called Rubygate and a lot of other things. You know, I want to like bring you up to speed on it, because this is just like a sign of complete political paralysis and flaccidity. And really the kind of thing that young people today should study with care, because it sort of has, I mean, this is the walking mummy that is stalking your future. Okay, so who's Silvio Berlusconi? Well, you know, he's been in Italian politics for a couple of decades now. He's a guy who was born in 1936. He's 75 years old, and he's an industrial mogul, and basically kind of the functional equivalent of a guy who owns Fox News, except he owns all media in Italy. And, you know, a couple of years ago, his wife left him because she grew weary of his endless infidelities. Even though he's in his 70s, the guy is just chop-licking kind of skirt chaser. And then probably is, you know, and that was okay, and he's always been like that. It's been accepted. But then his mother died, and you know, and he's in his 70s, his mom's in her 90s, and here's a guy who's like kind of spent 70 years in the shadow of this woman of the older generation who clearly was some kind of moral anchor for him. And, you know, I don't want to demonize the guy, because I spend a lot of time in Italy, and I try not to be judgmental. I don't want to take part in their internal struggles, or, you know, I'm just a sympathetic observer to the extent that I can. But, you know, clearly this bereavement and this loneliness just unhinged a guy, because he picked up with this weird harem of women. I mean, just like strange, time-serving creatures, and he built this sort of network of favors for them, and he found places for them to live, and he had them, you know, show up at his mansions and dance naked and in weird ceremonies, and then, you know, he placed them in politics and found sinecures for their relatives, and he eventually became involved with this underage hooker and belly dancer who's an illegal immigrant from Tunisia. She's also like a petty thief who like robs the apartments of her friends, and you know, and he like bailed her out of jail, and it's just this incredible Caligula soap opera of kind of, and it's all on tape because the police were wiretapping the women, so the whole thing's just been spewed, you know, onto the internet or leaked through various kinds of. It's just incredibly prurient. If you could imagine a dozen Monica Lewinskys, as you know, as just a kind of pagan harem. I mean, it sounds funny and people laugh at it, but believe me, if you're Italian, this is not amusing. I mean, you know, you have to be. I don't know, you have to be beyond cynical to find this funny. The guy's the head of a G7 nation. He's not, you know, he's not Hugh Hefner, although he behaves very like Hugh. He's a guy with an army and a navy and a cabinet, and you know, and like a linchpin hammerlock on the Italian parliament who cannot vote him out from power. So, you know, the women of Italy were naturally upset that the head of state should be consorting with underage prostitutes, and you know, it's horrible. So they just took to the streets in their normally silent millions, and they're sort of saying, you know, people of Italy, we are your wives. I mean, we are your sisters. We are your mothers. I mean, where is your respect for us? Why is this man allowed to carry on in this unconscionable way? And the reaction from, you know, the male population and the powers that be were like, oh, women, shut up. This is about money. Because, you know, the guy has the fix-in, and he sort of commands the Italian economy, and people don't want to throw him out because they're afraid of some kind of economic upheaval, and they're trying to protect the same sinecure that he's given him through the same methods he's used on this sort of miniature harem, which has become a kind of micro-Italy. So they're walking around in the streets with posters saying, Italy is not a brothel. And the truth is that Italy is not always a brothel. And Italians, you know this better than I do, and your friends will sorrow with you while your enemies mock you. But Italy is a brothel. And Washington, D.C. is a freaking Walmart of a brothel. It's a brothel on a continental scale for a lot of the same reasons. And if you came to this just as a design critic, okay, where's the passion and virtuosity? Are you really good at what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? Are you like capable of looking at this? Obviously, you would condemn the status quo rigorously. You would just reject it. That's awful. Can't you wretched people do anything better than this? And the reaction to a remark of that kind would be, well, it's their fault. It's the guys on the other partisan side or whatever, whomever. Thanks for the scapegoating. It's not an accident. The population of Italy voted for Berlusconi. They put him in power 4 times. In the United States, people vote for Republicans. They vote for the party of conservative common sense, even when it's dead obvious. The 96% of the planet, anybody who's not American, that they've lost their minds. They're just clearly insane, and everyone knows it, and they valorize themselves for their madness, and people go vote for that because they think it's somehow reassuring. It's calamitous. It's a joke to everybody outside the USA. It's a joke to everybody outside the range of Fox News. And when a situation is that calamitously bad, people resort to scapegoating because they can't get a grip on the actual things that threaten them. In Berlusconi's idea of Italy, it's all about communist female lawyers, trying to crucify him for a few harmless soirees with, underage hookers. And in the U.S., a banking crisis is all about the menace of the school teachers' unions. There are weird parallels there. There are women in comas who become, political heroines of the right. You may remember Terry Schiavo, that was a vegetable in Florida. They managed to shut down the government because this woman who had the good grace to die after years on life support. Italy's got a Terry Schiavo. Her name was Eluana Englaro. And Berlusconi shut down the government in order to make the very same moral point that, women are more used to his government without a brain. And then there's the Catholic Church. And, the Catholic Church is an organization 2 millennia old, and if I blow a little dust on them, they're not going to wrinkle up. I don't want to, bicker about theology with people who are better trained than me. But, the fact that these guys, and they are guys, they're all guys, of course, that these guys support Berlusconi when, his personal moral behavior is everything that the church would decry. It's just really a shocking example of Jesuitical cynicism. They've got the guy over a barrel because he's a sinner, and he's sort of a confessed public sinner, and they're thinking, well, okay, he's going to support the legislation we want, right to life, so forth, so on. That kind of devil's bargain, really, with activity that the church has rigorously condemned for centuries, it's just something Borgia-like about it. It's really unsettling. Where is the moral compass of these people? Do they really think it'll make the pedophile scandals look better by comparison? What is the story there? It's a freaking calamity. Where's the... I don't know. The population sits on the couch and plays video games. Terrifying. The U.S. You come back from Europe, hanging out in the U.S., first thing you see is obese people. It's calamitous. They weren't like that in 1975. It's hard to figure out what Archer's Daniel Midland did in the population. I don't know. But imagine if the Statue of Liberty looked like that. You came into New York Harbor, Staten Island, and the Statue of Liberty was clocking in around 350 pounds. And maybe she had, I don't know, a wee exercise mat instead of a torch. It brings out one's inner Bill Hicks, ladies and gentlemen. God bless the guy, wherever he is. If he was looking down at Texas right now, he would not be a happy man. He'd be scolding you worse than me. So, you know, it's pretty bad, and it's sleazy, and it's kind of frozen and crazy, and we all know that. We pay no attention to it and kind of hope it just goes away on its own. And that's the one attitude that Americans fully share with Italians now, and that's what worries me. I mean, what worries me is the response to things that really require courage and focused effort and passionate virtuosity to carry out, like, say, earthquake rescue. Just go read what happened to L'Aquila, this small, beautiful medieval town that was like leveled by an Italian earthquake. Italians, they know what earthquakes are, they know what volcanoes are, they even know what tsunamis are. The one massive horror that Japanese have named for everybody else because they get more of it than everybody else. But at least they know what to do when it happens. L'Aquila happened, nothing much went on. You know, TV appearances, cheerleading. The place is still a wreck. And for us, it was that BP offshore oil mess. Freaking nothing. Government did nothing. They were not capable of doing anything. They pretended to be able to do something. Suppose it had been 10 times worse. You think there's another government somewhere that was going to help people from the consequences of an industrial catastrophe like that? So clearly outlined in this like nuclear thing that's happened in Japan. I mean, they're in there working at it around the clock. It would save us from a BP. They're incapable of rapid, decisive action, and the world sometimes demands that of people. You can't sit on the couch eating chips and, you know, maneuvering verbally all the time. Like a gothic mansion, like a vampire geezer in it instead of a president. There's infinite wars on abstract nouns. WikiLeaks and Facebook, which freaking didn't even exist as entities maybe 5 years ago, they've got more political clout on the planet right now than the State Department and the Pentagon combined. It's a weird situation. It's not something to applaud, but everybody knows it. They're all reading the State Department cables. They're like, this is awful. I can't believe they're so helpless. Why does no one listen to them? They have no class. It's just the calamity. I mean, it's like Gothic torpor in a coffin of earth. So, you know, so what? They pretend to govern, we pretend to obey. I mean, Italians do that now, Americans do that now, Soviets used to do that. That's what they were great at, maintaining this sort of pretense that it was all right. Who's the real victims of a decaying status quo? I mean, who suffers when your society is incapable of focused action or, you know, intentional innovation? It's young people. It's people under 25 who are the victims of a decaying status quo. It's a gerontocracy. The demographics are easy to predict. Nobody ever looks at them because nobody ever wants to get old. One of the main reasons these guys can't do anything, they're too damn old, ladies and gentlemen. Guy, you know, Berlusconi and his crowd are people in their 70s, and they've got the younger people outnumbered. I mean, the reason that Egypt won is it's a huge number of kids. They're just able to outnumber and beat up the cops in the street. They threw Mubarak out because they had the numbers game on him. That's not what happened in the developed world. They are the people under 25, unemployed people, you know them, you may be them. They're a minority. They're a disenfranchised minority now. And I wanted to formally declare my passionate solidarity with the millennials. Boomers, shut the hell up! About how great you are, okay? You know, with the war, you were against the war. We got an endless war now. You're for the environment. The environment's completely messed up. You wanted prosperity. We're in a freaking depression. You're like cool on drugs. You gotta have a Mexican severed head with every dime bag of marijuana you bastards smoke. What's left of our civil rights that you campaign for? All right, the one thing you might brag about, death of totalitarianism and national governments. All national governments are weak now. Yours are weak. Everybody else is weak. countries for same reasons. That's all right. Totalitarianism, seeing that off as a great achievement. 1989, your high water mark. Get the heck out of the way. Pack it in, boomers. But you should be studying right now collaborative consumption. Technomadism. Dematerialize, people. Vanish. Let it go. Give it away. Share it or stop it. Stop clinging to your entitlements. You're like some kind of Dickensian gothic creatures now. You're turning into Miss Havisham with a wedding cake covered with spiders. You're top heavy with age. You got the votes and the money, you've got no conscience. Get out of the way. Over the long term, your attitude is fatal. You must support younger people. Who is going to feed you? Who is going to supply those entitlements? What medical care will you have? What pension? What security? Precarious employment for people whose excess wealth is supposed to be underwriting your security? It's built on sand. You're not looking at the longer term there. You are sucking the blood of your children. You're like those Twilight guys, this Edward 110-year-old character, still hanging out in high school. Hitting on this movie